As you see, we're starting a new sermon series this morning, and we're going to walk through the Sermon on the Mount, and I've titled this, What If Jesus Was Serious? And I've given that title because I firmly believe that if we understand the Sermon on the Mount as Jesus intended it, that it's going to challenge us, that it's going to make demands of us that maybe we weren't expecting when we walked into chapter 5 of Matthew. And what Jesus is going to ask of us is going to confront us in different ways. There may be sections where you're going to be a little offended by Jesus. Maybe you're not going to be too pleased with him, that he's asking you to go a certain direction, do a certain thing, or stop something. I think he is going to come against each of us sort of in a different way and confronting our lives and how we live. And if today doesn't offend you, come back next week. Maybe it will. And I think it's going to cause us at different points in time to stop and ask ourselves, is Jesus really serious in what he's asking? Because it's going to be tempting for us to want to dumb it down, to lower the bar, to explain it away somehow, to make it easier for us. But I don't really think that's what he intends at all. I think he's intending to introduce us to something that is radically different than we're used to. Has anyone here got to go to a country that drives on the left side of the road and got to drive the car on the left side of the road? Anybody? I'll do that. Brett back there? No? Yeah, y'all. Okay. Yeah, first service, there was a few more. So in 2009, we went to Ireland and had like 12 days, and we rented a car. It was me, Deborah, and my sister and my parents. There was 5 of us, and we crammed in this minivan that looked a lot like a hatchback. With all our suitcases. It was fun. And I got to drive us for 12 days around the island on the left side. And I'll tell you, the first 48 hours were a little scary. Dublin traffic, a new left-hand driver, it was a little scary. I have to admit, I wasn't real good. I was shocked at how many decisions our brains make naturally, just on the fly, moment by moment by moment by moment as we're driving, that when you just change to the left side, it changes it. And one that I wasn't ready for, okay, that of all the things I would have told you that I was prepared to be different, this one I wasn't. And that is today, you and I, when we sit in our vehicles, we are on the left side of the car, and as you're driving down the lane, we're on the left half of our lane, right? Well, over there, you're on the right side of the car, and on the right half of the lane. And what I wasn't prepared for is that my brain wanted to be on the left half of the lane. And so even though I was on this side of the car, I kept either driving here and halfway off this way, which Ireland doesn't have ditches, they just put up rock walls, or I was driving over here on oncoming traffic, right? I wasn't prepared for how my brain just instinctively wanted to be on that left side. And as I said, 48 hours was pretty scary. You had to really think about the left-hand turn, that it really is a tight turn, not a far one, and then the right-hand turn was the big one, not the little one. But after 48 hours, it's like my brain just changed. And I didn't have to think about it anymore. It was amazing. It's like shocking. You're driving your own, and you're like, I'm pretty good at this, right? Because you just haven't thought about it for a while, because your brain is just such a beautiful thing. The plasticity of it, it just moved, right? It just shifted. Now, what's kind of crazy when we came home and someone picked us up from the airport, and I'm riding in the car, and I'm like, whoa, yeah, okay, never mind. Whew, you were turning right there, and I thought you were turning into it. I had to really think about it, right? Well, I think what Jesus is going to be asking of us in the Sermon on the Mount is to drive on the left side of the road. That he's going to be asking us to mentally make this shift from what we are used to in life to living to what the culture around us is normal to this left side that isn't normal, that's going to take some work. And just like me, it took me some time to figure out that whole left side thing. It's going to take us some time. When we wade through what he's actually asking of us, it's going to take some of us some time to shift. And we're going to find ourselves straddling the middle line, right? Or one wheel in the ditch, flopping along, trying to figure this thing out. But I think he's going to challenge us. And here's part of why I think that. Turn with me to Matthew. We're going to start in chapter 4, verse 17. So we were there a couple weeks ago, but I want to come back here for a moment. Matthew in verse 17 gives us this sort of narrative declaration of what Jesus is up to, this primary mission statement of Jesus, that he is here to bring about the kingdom. And so he makes this statement. He says, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. That's sort of Jesus' thesis message, right? And we talked about that 2 weeks ago, but here's what I want us to notice, is it says repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Repent. This idea of repenting is this idea of changing direction, that you were going one direction, and it means to change your direction. I think in order for us to understand and for us to live in and for us to be the kingdom, we're going to have to repent. We're going to have to change from driving on the right side to the left side. There's going to be some things, and it may be different for all of us, that we're going to have to repent of. We're going to have to change. We're going to have to change our direction, change how we see it. I think that is just what he is expecting. He's just saying it. He didn't say, the kingdom of heaven is near. He said, repent. The kingdom of heaven is near. I think it is understood in his message that this is going to be different. And we're going to have to understand it that way. And last week, Joshua did a great job of then walking through the next paragraph of how he calls 4 fishermen to be his disciples. And I don't want to repeat that. I want to bring up one thing about that. And that is, in my mind, Matthew introduces us to the elephant in the room. And it's like he sets it in the middle of the table, and he's going to see how long it takes for anybody to notice the elephant. And the elephant's this. He just said, repent, change, reorient. The kingdom is here. And here's 4 guys who did. They were excited. They were eager. They were willing. They dropped everything. They radically changed their life. And if you notice in the story, their dad's life, the family business to follow. And it's like he's setting this in the middle of the table as we walk through this, saying, they followed, will you? They followed. Are you willing to? And it's like we read the story, and it's a very simple story. And it's like, oh, that's nice. The 4 of them followed. And then he comes, and it's like confronts with, okay, here it is. Now what about you? And so through this whole series, there's going to be this thing sitting on the table. And it's this question of, are you and I willing to repent? Do we really believe he's serious enough that we should change? That we should make alterations to our lives to align and to fit and to match what he's saying? Now, as he's done with that story, he goes to verse 23. Verse 23 is important. This is sort of an outline of the first part of the book of Matthew. It says, Jesus went throughout all of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all kinds of disease and sickness among the people. So preaching in their synagogues, traveling, going throughout, preaching in synagogues, that is exactly what you should expect a rabbi to be doing. That's what rabbis did. He is acting rabbi-ish. He's a rabbi, he's going, he's teaching. He's going in this city and he's teaching in that city and in this town square and in that synagogue. He is going about and teaching just like we should expect him to do. That's why throughout his ministry, he traveled and he taught, because they were traveling teachers, most rabbis. And so he is doing exactly what we should expect him to be doing. And then second, preaching the gospel of the kingdom. It's Matthew 5, 6, and 7. It's the Sermon on the Mount. He's preaching about the gospel of the kingdom, casting vision about what his kingdom will look like and who his kingdom people are. And then healing all kinds of disease and sickness among the people. This is chapters 8 and 9. If you go look at those chapters, they're soaked with him healing people and doing miracles. So this outlines for us, Matthew is giving us a kind of a direction, if you will, about this first part of the book of Matthew that we should be expecting. And then he continues in verses 24 and 25. We must understand, if we're going to understand the Sermon on the Mount, we must understand how these 2 verses fit and impact the rest of what we're about to read, okay? Verse 24. So a report about him spread throughout Syria. People brought to him all who suffered with various illnesses and afflictions, those who had seizures, paralytics, and those possessed by demons. and he healed them. And large crowds followed him from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and beyond the Jordan River. So picture this. He's teaching. He's traveling around, teaching in the different communities. And who are the people that are being attracted to him? Who are the people that, like this magnetic force, are being drawn to him and his message? It's the least of these. It's the social nobodies. It's the outcasts. It's the unwanted. It's the sick. It's the hurting. It's the poor. These are not the center of their society. In fact, in their society, far more than in our society today, these are the folks that are pushed aside. That are pushed aside because they're not wanted. We have lots of social structures and different things in our culture that help to support and give dignity and help be a normal part of life in our culture for folks such as these. Not in their culture. There were no social structures. They were pushed aside. This means that Jesus was not ministering in the gated community on the edge of town. It means he was ministering in the slum on the edge of town. So I want you to picture, here he is. He's announced this kingdom that he is bringing, that he is leading. He is the king of the kingdom. Where would you expect him to go to bring about the kingdom? Not the slum. Shouldn't he be working with the rich and the powerful and the influential? Not Jesus. He goes and takes a walk by the lake, then he goes to the slums, to the place where all the unwanted are pushed aside and left. That's who he's going to minister to. That's who's being drawn to him and his message. And as we see here, then we flip the page to chapter 5, verse 1, and it says, when he saw the crowds, he went up the mountain. Now, don't think Colorado mountains. Think rocky bluffs, right? Hills, large hills, but not what we think of as Colorado mountains. He went up there. After he sat down, his disciples came to him. So he sees these crowds gathering around him. They're following him. He's taught over here, and the crowd followed. And he goes over here to teach, and the crowd kind of followed. And he over here, and the crowd is growing and growing and growing as he's going. It's increasing in size. And so he pulls away from civilization out to the hillside. And it says he sat. Now, in our culture, the teacher stands. I'm standing, right? That's our cultural norm, is that the teacher stands and the listeners sit. In their culture, the teacher sat. It's a position of authority. And so I picture him going up on this mountain and finding the right place, maybe a little rock outcropping or something, to where then he can have a seat. And here are all these people limping up the hill, struggling to get up the mountain because they're hurting, they're disabled in some way, right? They're helping each other, they're struggling up the mountain. And he sits. And he assumes this position of authority. And so they settle in. Now it says the disciples followed him. You notice that? Now, just for clarification, the 12 aren't the 12 yet. We don't have 12. We have 4. So when it says disciples, it means those who are following him. It means all these people who are following Jesus. And so here they sit on the hillside. Picture the sun of the day down on them. And they're following this rabbi that they've connected with in whatever way so far. And they're waiting with bated breath for what he's going to say. What's he going to teach? No rabbi ever gives them attention like this. They're pushed aside at synagogue. Told to go away. They're unclean. But this rabbi is going to teach. Now, as we jump into this section we call the Beatitudes, we need to understand what it means when he says blessed or blessed. See, blessing is the result, the fruit, if you will, of right relationship. Think about this. If you and a friend are at odds with one another, you're fighting, you don't say, man, this is a blessing. But if you and a friend or your spouse or your kids or some situation, you are like, whew, you're locked. You say, man, this is a blessing. You're a blessing to me. See, blessing is the result of right relationship. And as Jesus goes through these blessings, he's going to both talk about blessing and relationship this way and with God. That these people are blessed because their relationships are right. And what's also interesting is he's speaking in a present tense. He's not saying, I wish blessing upon you, as if it's going to happen in the future or I hope it happens in the future. He's saying, if this is you, you are blessed. You are right now blessed. When this, then this. Okay? And so he's pronouncing blessing, and this is a Jewish custom that predated Jesus and has come forward all the way to today, where today we sometimes, it's not as popular in our culture, right, but we pronounce blessing upon one another. So the idea of blessing one another is what he's doing. So here he lists 9 different blessings, okay? Every one of them, blessed are these people, and this is their reward, okay? That's the pattern on all of them. So I just want to walk through these so that we understand what exactly he was saying. As we walk through this, we must keep in mind his audience, okay, who is sitting with him on the mountain. These folks who are waiting with bated breath for the rabbi to teach in a setting they've never experienced before, okay? And so he starts. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Now, poor in spirit is probably not a term you've used much in your daily speech. And we could think about poor in spirit. What exactly does that mean? What he's speaking about here is poverty. And not poverty just in terms of cash or money or wealth, but poverty as in brokenness. He's saying, blessed are those who are broken. Everybody sitting in front of him was broken. So here they are, with just waiting for the rabbi. What is he going to talk about? Of all the things the rabbi could teach about, what's he going to? You are blessed if you're broken. Imagine how that would have connected with you. You're broken, you know it. Society tells you you're broken every chance they get when they discard you off to the side. Nobody's ever told you you're blessed because you're broken. And the reality is, it actually causes a lot of grief in your life, doesn't it? But he said, you're blessed. You're blessed. See, what he's saying is that your position doesn't matter in his kingdom. His kingdom is a kingdom where nobodies are somebodies. And as we go further through his teaching, we're going to find out that the way the somebodies participate in the kingdom is to become nobodies. But he's affirming who they are. Y'all are nobodies, and blessed are you. You are blessed. Because what he's saying is you are in the perfect position to be part of the kingdom. You're broken. That's perfect. It's exactly where God wants you. I can just imagine how that would have resonated with their hearts. I don't think we can, because none of us have been treated like they had, probably. But talk about drawing you in to this person. And then he lists 3 more, and I'm going to put them in a triad, and then I'm going to go through them backwards, okay? Blessed are those who mourn, blessed are the meek, and blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Let's start there. So righteousness is right relationship with one another, right relationship with God. These people sitting in front of him have never known righteousness. Not because they're bad people, but because every relationship they've ever known has been defined by their brokenness and has been not allowed. Societally pushed to the side. Their synagogue, their religion, their family, pushed aside. In their faith, the rabbis have told them they're not welcome at the synagogue because they're unclean. Translation, God doesn't want you either. They've never known righteousness. And not only have they never known it, but they see the unrighteousness everywhere around them. And he says they hunger and they thirst for righteousness. Now, hunger and thirst are two sensations that are involuntary for us. You can't just decide to be hungry or decide to be thirsty. Your body, depending on your metabolism and when you've eaten and things, just at some point says, hey, I'm hungry, right? And the pains that involve. For me, I haven't eaten in 10 minutes. I'm hungry, right? That's just how my body works. But we don't like voluntarily say, I want to be hungry or I want to be thirsty now. And in the same way, here are people whose lives have been defined by unrighteousness, and they are swimming in a culture of unrighteousness, and yet their heart yearns for righteousness. They hunger for it. They thirst for it. It's the pains of it, just like a hunger pain. They desire it. They have this almost physical reaction, longing for righteousness. And God says, perfect. You're blessed if that is your heart, longing for righteousness. And then up above, meek. Meek is this idea of power being bridled, like a bridle on a horse. Harnesses the power of the horse. These people have been bridled by their culture. The culture has said, you don't have power, you don't have a voice, you don't have influence, we don't want your input. Go over there. Get away. Their culture has bridled them. They are meek. They feel like they have no influence. They have no way to impact anything. They see this unrighteousness. They hunger for righteousness. They long for it to be different. But I can't do anything. I'm a nobody. And Jesus says, you are blessed because you are more powerful than you know. But your culture has bridled you. And mourning. They mourn. It's part of that hungering and thirsting. They mourn what is around them. They mourn the brokenness of the world. They long for it to be right. They haven't numbed themselves to it. They haven't done whatever they may do, their version of the numbing things that we do, to say, I can't deal with the pain, I'll numb it. Instead, they feel it. They look around and they see all the wrong, and it hurts, and they mourn it. These are the broken, the mourning, the meek, and those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. These are the blessed ones. And then he has another triad. And these are almost answering the question, how do I take the bridle off? What's it look like to be unbridled? And he says, blessed are the merciful. Mercy is something their culture didn't know. The Romans made sure of that. If you came against the Romans in any way, they'd just take you out. The Jewish authorities, to keep order so that they could keep order with the Romans, didn't have much mercy either. And here are the least of the least have been pushed aside. They have never been shown mercy. They've been pushed aside. And he says, blessed is the merciful. You have not been shown mercy, but you can be merciful. In a culture where the smallest acts of mercy are absolutely countercultural to what's happening, they'd be like a fish swimming upstream, being merciful. But he's saying, be merciful in small acts, in small little ways, in the different encounters you have with one another in your life. Be merciful. It's one way you have power and can take the bridle off. Another is to be pure in heart. It's the idea of singular focus on God, on our faith, on Him, on being faithful. Which is who these people are. Remember, of all the people he taught to, we don't know how many times, how many places he taught to, how many people he had heard him teach in these communities and had said, crazy rabbi, and had gone a different direction. These are the ones that were drawn to him, who were focused on him enough to follow him from this place to that place to this place to now up this mountain. The pure in heart, those focused on him. Don't let ourselves get distracted by the things of this world. Stay focused, stay pure of heart. The third is peacemakers. This one's not very fun. It's different than peacekeeping, by the way. Peacekeeping means we just avoid the conflict and we just act like it's okay. Peacemaking means we see the conflict and we go in the middle of it. That we are so troubled by conflict and we're so focused on unity and on reconciliation that we willingly insert ourselves in the middle of something where we know odds are we're going to be the enemy of both of them because we didn't take one side or the other. But we're making peace, reconciling. If we want to take the bridle off, we can be merciful. We can focus, be singular focused and not be distracted, and we can make peace. And the last two. Blessed are those when people insult you and persecute you. Two of the hardest things that we can endure is being insulted and persecuted because of our faith. Most of us have no idea what that is, if we're honest. I want you to imagine being these folks sitting on the hillside. And what Jesus has said has sort of rallied the troops. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to go live that way. And you're going to go drive on the left-hand side of the road around the Roman Empire. Whew. Conflict. You think the culture is going to be very excited about this? You think you're going to get insulted? You think you're going to be persecuted? He's saying that if we are the kingdom, if we live as we're being called to, there is going to be conflict. There's going to be tension. It's going to get tough. And we're blessed when we are insulted and persecuted. It's not that we're going and looking for it. That's not godly. But when we are living faithfully, it's going to come our way. And we should know it. And we're blessed when that happens. Each one of these 9 are given, and then a reward is given. If you will, a blessing is given. And as we read through these, I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of the people sitting on the mountain. Okay? And hear these as best you can, as if they did that first time sitting on the hill that day. To you, the kingdom of heaven belongs. Nothing belongs to me. I'm poor. I live in the slum. The kingdom of heaven? No. Yeah, right. You'll be comforted? Nobody cares enough about me to comfort me. They just told me to get out of their way. I'm going to be comforted? Really? I'm going to inherit the earth? That's funny. The earth, the whole thing? Yeah. I'll be satisfied. I've never been satisfied in my whole life. I'm not even sure where my next meal's coming from. Satisfied? I'm not even sure what that is. Shown mercy. Not in this world. Mercy, really. I'm going to see God? Yeah, right. They don't even let me in the synagogue. How am I going to see God? Are we called children of God? A child of God? That sounds crazy. Again, the kingdom of heaven belongs to me. Reiterated a second time, like you actually mean it, like you're actually serious. What are you talking about? I will have great reward in heaven. You hear how crazy this sounds, right? Yeah, Jesus is speaking directly to who they are. He is blessing them because of who they are. Present tense. If you are this, this is the blessing. And this, all of this whole thing, the characteristics and the rewards are absolutely countercultural to anything these people have ever known. Yet he's speaking directly to who they are today, sitting there in their brokenness following Jesus. I have come to bring the kingdom. And if this is you, that is you. He has taken people who have never known a drop of honor in their lives and given them honor beyond what they could possibly fathom. I bet a number of people sitting there that day stood up and shook their heads and said, "This rabbi is nuts." And they left. But there were others that I think were just locked in because this guy knew them in a way they had never been known before. And he's not done, though. Because in verse 13, he says, "You are the salt of the earth." Notice he says, "You are the salt of the earth." Now, you and I, we don't know salt much outside of putting it on our food, right? But for them, salt was this preservative that kept life together. Whether it was a salt water mixture or salt itself, salt is what preserved food, because they didn't have refrigeration, to get it past whenever its expiration date was. It's what preserved life for them. It added flavor, obviously, and it caused thirst. And here he is telling them, you are the salt of the earth. You are going to preserve earth, and not the planet, the people. You are the preservative. When you are living as verses 3 through 12, you're preserving the kingdom. And you're drawing the world to you because they thirst for what you are and what you have. But if salt loses its flavor, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything but to be thrown out and trampled by the people. They threw it out on the roads. Verse 14, you're the light of the world. Now again, we don't see light quite the same way because we have electricity. We got lights everywhere. We're used to lights. But you live in a world where when the sun goes down, there's darkness. And you light one little candle. And it brings more light to a room than you and I could ever imagine because we're just not used to it. The light of the world. Light combats darkness. Darkness can't win. Light always wins. That's who you are. You're the light of the world, bringing light to everything around you. We're slum people. We don't bring light to anybody. You're the light of the world. A city located on a hill cannot be hidden. Picture going in total darkness, and up ahead of you, you see these twinkling lights up on the horizon. And it's a city of all these candles, of all these people's houses. It's right there. There's the city. People don't light a lamp and then put it under a basket. They put it on a lampstand. So it gives light to the whole house. And in the same way, let your light shine before people so that they can see your good deeds and give honor to the Father in heaven. See, he's telling them, you're not who you think you are. Your culture has told you that you're nobody, but you're blessed. And just be. We read through this list of blessings and we think none of us are that. None of us are that good. You're right. But Jesus is. He's pointing to himself. And he's saying, all I want you to do is just to be. And when you be, you will be salt and light to the world. So this is about not only how they are as people, as a community of people, but how they interact with the world. How they are when they go out into the world. They are salt and they are light. He's not talking about working your way to perfection. He's talking about who we are as kingdom people. Who we are to be. And here's the picture he's painting. He's not asking us to move to Ireland so that we can drive on the left side. He's asking us to walk out of here and drive on the left side. That's a lot different, isn't it? You imagine the chaos we would create if we all drove out of here on the left side. But would we create any less chaos if we actually lived like this? In the kingdom you live in today. So this isn't about us praying, God, take us out of this place so that we can live in your kingdom. It's him saying, no, you are the kingdom. When you live like this, when this is who you are, when this is the characteristics of you and of us, we are the kingdom. It's a kingdom in a place where the kingdom doesn't fit. It's the countercultural kingdom, the upside down kingdom. And he's calling us to be that. And even though none of us in this room are socially broke enough to be in the crowd that was sitting in front of him that day, we all are broken. This is who we are. No matter what you think your position is, you're perfectly qualified to be the kingdom. Perfectly qualified. And so the question is who we are. The question that he set on the table is, am I blessed? What do I need to repent of where I'm missing blessing? Where are the things that I need to grow? Where I don't match this kingdom, where I match actually the world's kingdom more than this kingdom? Where are those places? We think about our response to this today. It's, how salty am I? Am I a light to anybody? Not that it's me, but Christ shining through me. Is my life a light to anybody? The question is, are we being? And are we salt? And are we light? And I want us to close in prayer, and I want us to reflect on those things. I want us to ask, what, God, am I to do now? Jesus, if you are serious, now what for me? What for me? For you. Pray with me, please. Father, what a beautiful picture. Just a stunning picture. Father, I pray that as we read these blessings, our hearts would cry out. Father, it is as we live in this world, your kingdom is, on one hand, like mind-blowing and hard to wrap our minds around. On the other hand, it is absolutely refreshing to think about. And the fact that you have called us as your kingdom, to bring your kingdom to be here in this place. Father, I pray that we would give consideration to our hearts, asking how we be this morning. Father, convict us where we need convicted. Bring us to repentance so that our lives honor you, so that we are salty and we are light because you are shining through us. Father, I pray that as we leave here, we would drive on the left side. And that as we live this week, whatever that may have in front of us, that difference would be clear. Because you are living in and through us. So, Father, I thank you for the blessing of being your people. And I ask this in Jesus' name.